Hello friends, welcome back, and for anyone who's new, welcome. Next up in our boondocking series, I'm going to be talking about how we keep humidity out of the bus. With it being wintertime and us being on the East Coast, this seems to be something that we are constantly trying to mitigate, and it's one of the most frequently asked questions we get. First, what is boondocking? Boondocking is when you are in your mobile dwelling, your van, your Skoolie, your RV, and you are not hooked up to any services, meaning you are just docking on land, which is what we do basically everywhere we go. We very rarely hook up to the grid, which is electrical or sewer, and we are self-sufficient in how we live and what we do. One of the things that comes in that gets a little complicated, especially in winter, when the outside temperature and the inside temperature are very different, is you get a lot of humidity and condensation inside your rig. And so I'm going to share with you some of the things that we do to keep the humidity out of the bus, and also how we keep our space mold-free and as clean as we can. Our first thing that we do is, as you can see next to me here, we have a wood stove on board. A wood stove is dry heat, and so what happens is when this is lit, the inside of this bus is very dry. Right now we're hovering at about 30% humidity, where it has been raining here for days. Ground is wet, trees are wet, everything is wet outside. Frost on the ground this morning, but not in here because of this stove. Because of that, there's a drastic difference in the outside temperature than the inside temperature. What I'm going to do is I'll show you what our windows look like, and then I'll show you how we keep the moisture off of our windows. As you can see from the window behind me, there is absolutely no condensation or no water on it. The key for us in keeping the humidity so low, again, like I said, is the wood stove, but we also have a few other things. We have max air fans in the very front of our bus and in the middle of the bus. And what we do with those is we are having them open just a teeny tiny bit, and it is constantly drawing air up and out. We do that whenever the wood stove is not on, because if the wood stove is on, it'll pull smoke out. But whenever the wood stove is off, we always have our max air fans, no matter what the temperature is, cracked open a little bit and sucking and ventilating air out. We do this in the summer, winter, fall, and spring. And this really helps to take any moisture that is in the bus and take it out. Overnight, which is when the most drastic temperature differences occur, we have these for our windows. These are cut to the shape. This is Reflectix. You can buy this at any hardware store, and it's cut to the size of each individual window. This shiny side, in the summertime, we put against the windows to reflect heat, and so the sun does not warm up the bus. And on this side, as you can see, we have pieces of cotton flannel that we sewed onto it. What we do is at night, we stick it cotton flannel side against the window, so that way any moisture that does develop is collected in this fabric, and then we take these down every day and they dry. This prevents any type of moisture developing and dripping down the walls. This also will stop the moisture and mold from actually developing, because the moisture is collecting in the fabric, and then we're drying the fabric every day, and so there's not a chance for mold to develop. Another practice that we have is we actually spray down all of our windows when we do a weekly clean with white vinegar. We use white vinegar to clean basically everything in the bus, but white vinegar kills mold. And so if there does happen to be any spores that are developing in areas that have high moisture, by spraying and cleaning weekly, it's something you have to keep on top of, but by doing that, it mitigates the chance for mold and mold spores to develop. Now, we've been living in the bus for 3 years now, and we have only found mold one time, and we had actually put up a we had closed off some of our windows and we didn't insulate behind them, and we found a little bit in the corner when we went to go redo it, and so we learned that we then put some insulation back there to be able to be that vapor barrier between the metal on the outside and the wood on the inside. Let me show you something else we have. Another important thing that we have to help combat moisture is actually dehumidifiers. We have one that runs off of USB power, so it has very little draw, and so that can be run off of our solar panels. But we don't always have, especially in the winter, have the solar recovery to run a dehumidifier. And so we have these. These are mini dehumidifiers that you can hang up. They're designed for boats, closets, small spaces. So we have 3 of them. One in the very front of the bus, where the most moisture actually collects, one in the very back of the bus, and then one by the bathroom, because that's where we shower. And what will happen is if you can see here, it's actually starting to turn green. It's orange when it is dry, and it will collect moisture. And then, once all of these beads are green, we plug this in, so it does work off of a 120 20 volts. So we do have to use our inverter when we do plug it in, or I go to the library or a cafe and I'll actually plug these in there while we're there. Takes about 6 hours to fully go back to orange, and these will last anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks depending on how humid it is. It tends to collect much faster in the summertime, which is perfect for us because that's when we have the most solar recovery, and it's no problem to leave these plugged in to go back to the orange. These we found recently, and this has been a huge helper in keeping moisture out of the bus. Last and most certainly not least is the type of heat that we have in the bus and in your mobile dwelling will affect the condensation and the moisture you have within. We personally choose to have not only the wood stove, but a diesel heater. Diesel heaters, when they run a very dry heat, and so they are not producing any extra moisture. They're actually helping to take the moisture out of the air. When you use heat like propane, that actually creates a wet heat. And so a lot of people who have RVs will have propane run heating units because they also use propane for refrigerators, which ours is not. Ours is a DC powered low voltage refrigerator that runs off of solar. These things we all did to help keep the moisture down and the energy usage low. No matter whatever you choose to do, it works. These things are what work for us. Others have different solutions. I'd love to hear ideas of what you do to keep moisture out of your vehicle. But honestly, the little things are what made the difference. The window coverings were such a huge help to us. This is actually our first winter staying on the East Coast. Normally we go to Arizona, we go to the Southwest for the winter, and then we aren't worrying about moisture at all. It becomes very dry and it hasn't really been an issue. This summer and this winter was the first year that we had to have to come up with a little bit more creative solutions, which is why we made these window coverings. It's also why we got those dehumidifiers, and those 2 small things have made a world of a difference. I hope this helps you in decreasing the amount of moisture you have on board, and until next time. It is, see the wood stove's going? We're close to the wood stove, so it's very warm in here. That's our inside temperature. That's our outside temperature, and this is the humidity.